Ready? Robert, thanks so much for joining the stage. I wanted to start with kind of the beginnings of Zalando. You started in 2008 at the height of the financial crisis, and you kind of started with this mission of let's make e-commerce smooth. What would you say was like kind of the singular initial insight that drove this sort of like massive growth of Zalando to start with?
In the early days, I mean. So, I guess, in my view, I think when you start a company, I think you are successful in the first couple of years. I think you need probably, I think, like one very big idea, which is the kind of the reason why you as a company exists. This is the reason why investors get excited about you, why employees get excited about you. And I think then you probably need a couple of smaller ideas of why you actually execute better than anyone else, why you have better return on capital, why you're faster. So, and I think in our case, I think the very big idea was that I think we got excited about was this idea of democratizing fashion. So of giving access, to no matter where you live, if you live like in north of Norway or in the center of Paris, that you have the same access to selection, to brands, and which hasn't been before Zalando was launched. So that was a big idea. And then the smaller ideas, why we actually were better than competitors, there were a couple of them, but I think they were all kind of very important. So for example, one was that the way of how we build selection, so the way of how we actually go to a brand and actually buy in the beginning for shoes, we actually did it distribution backwards. So we actually looked at search engine keywords, and we looked at very specifically what kind of shoes were searched in which sizes, and then we actually went to the brands and tried to actually get different size distributions. Because typically, like in the internet, 2008, 2009, people were more looking for the larger shoe size or the smaller shoe sizes. Or another important idea was that we reconsidered returns. So making returns very easy was something that I think others didn't really do because they were looking at order profitability. And we realized that when you actually make returns very easy, it actually increases the customer lifetime value. So we could actually invest more into marketing because actually the customer lifetime value was actually much higher. We looked at this entire funnel. So our third one that was important was that we, when we actually bought TV advertising, we looked at direct response. So we could literally measure the impact of every single TV spot, what it will have on the customer acquisition. So, this big idea of democratizing fashion and then these very small ideas of how do we execute better, they helped us then actually to have to be very fast in the beginning. And so we went from 5 million in the first year to 1.2 billion in revenues like 3 years later at barely any losses. So I think that was the combination of big idea and small ideas.
Fascinating. And if you think about that start of the journey, Europe was a single market that kind of probably benefited you in the early days. And if we just look at Europe today, if you think about capital, if you think about regulation, if you think about adoption of technology, there's this feeling that it lags behind the US and China. What would you, if you were like starting Zalando today, what would be some of the barriers and structural barriers that you see you might face in Europe that you might have faced or might have not faced in 2008?
Yeah, I think for consumer tech, I think the two things that really matter to be successful is scale, and is speed. So scale, because I think once you have a lot of scale, not everything, but I think most of the things actually get easier. So the brand recognition gets easier, the negotiations get easier, the algorithms work in a better way. So scale is very important. And speed is very important because you have to adapt very quickly. So, and if I just reflect, I think in the last 15 years that I've been doing Zalando, I think the scale, Europe actually offers scale. So as a single market, it's a beautiful idea. This single market, it offers a lot of scale that you can actually work towards. And I think over the last 15 years, I think the idea of the single market, I think, has been probably a little bit of Europe, a little bit underappreciated, and I think I think the power of regulation has been probably a little bit overappreciated. So, and I think that actually at the moment, I would say actually harms a little bit the speed and scale that you can achieve in Europe, because you just have to work yourself so much harder to actually get to this single market idea, to speak to the 400 million, 450 million Europeans in infrastructure, and iterate very fast, because you have to actually, so much more than actually like 15 years ago, think about what is the specific regulation interpretation in every single market and how do you adapt to it. So it actually takes on a lot of speed.
Well, and what, if you think about like kind of this position that we sometimes find ourselves in of being defensive or being on the back foot, what do you think needs to change? I mean, there's a lot that needs to change, but what are the kind of key elements that need to change to really go on the front foot, to start creating an environment where we have differentiated advantage, especially in areas where Europe is strong? Like if you think about some of the more frontier AI, deep tech, but even beyond that, what needs to be unlocked? Is it regulation? Is it?
Yeah.
Because we have the talent, and we have, a market of large enough that it's as large as the US in aggregated terms, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I reflect a little bit on Europe, I kind of, there's a lot of things happening, but I think what I miss a bit in Europe is, I think, this positive idea. What do we actually want to achieve as Europe? And what I as well miss a bit is this. This notion of the acknowledgement, that we are actually in a global race now, with China, with the US, and with other parts of the world, around the future, around creating AGIs, around creating, I think, great companies. And I think this acknowledgement, actually saying, like here in Europe, actually, yes, there is a race, and we want to win this race, and as a kind of a mission, as a kind of a vision, and then actually deriving what is the right things actually that are required to win this race. I think that's a little bit what I'm missing in the discussion here in Europe. And if you think about what is actually required to win such a race, I think first of all you have to consider the founders, the movers and shakers here in Europe as your customers. So, and because when they build or when they scale companies, I think they can just choose where they want to do it. They can go to the US, they can go to other parts of the world. So what do they actually need? Yeah? And I think what they need is, first of all, we talked about it like an easy, scalable single market, irrespective if it's a B2B company or B2C. So how can you actually speak very easy to this market? So harmonization of this market is, I think, very important. Access to capital is another thing which is very important. And then I think as well recognizing how important speed is actually for companies, and what we here in Europe actually can do to unblock speed for early stage or later stage founders. That is, I think, very, very important for those companies actually to win on a global scale. So I think this view of creating a vision, creating a mission, and then really deriving this question: how is Europe the most competitive place on earth for companies actually to succeed here in Europe? I think it's an important kind of first step, I would say, for Europe.
How about the cultural perceptions around success and speed and scale, and move fast and break things at times, which is also different in Europe versus the US? Or do you think that actually when you move out of the regulated world, that is not an issue?
Well, I think there's certainly, some cultural mentality difference. I think that I realized when in Europe and the US, I think which are a little bit harder to change. But I think opportunities such as Slush, I think where people, entrepreneurs get together, are very positive about what can we create. I think very much as well help already to create, I think, this positive mentality here in Europe.
Yeah, and the more founders, the more you have this flywheel of a working ecosystem. Yeah. Especially in smaller countries, once you have a few big successes, people start to see themselves as, I can also achieve that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If we and that's kind of the last point on the topic of Europe, but if we move on to this point around unique strengths, not just barriers, but if I'm a founder and I have to decide where to launch, and obviously business consideration aside, so assuming it's equal from where I could run my business in both, why should I do it in Europe?
Well, I think in my mind it's. I mean, at the end of the day, is like starting a company is. I mean, and I do this now since more than 16 years. So I think it's a really long-term commitment to something. Yeah? So and I think you really have to think very hard where to put it. Like where do you set the center of your life? Where do you set the center of, I mean, your personal value creation? Yeah? That where you want to spend your time and resources. And I think this question of home and this question of what are actually the values set that I actually that I get into, I think probably should be like always a very important one. And I think personally, I think the value set of Europe is very strong, is very aligned. I think to many people that founders that I talk to, especially in Europe. And I think that should be, the very first base. And then if you then go through what actually are other things that you still need. Yeah. So I mean, Europe has an incredible infrastructure. Europe has an incredible access to talent. Yeah? So like incredible university, incredible education. So so the access to talent is actually very strong here in Europe. Huh? Access to capital is as well. It used to be an argument which was against Europe, but I mean, we just talked about it. I think it's not anymore an argument. I think you can actually, no matter if you're in Europe or if you're in the US or if you're somewhere else in the world, you can actually access capital. It has been much easier. And I think then, I would say that there's actually not many things that actually should speak actually not to start in Europe. So why don't we just create, I think, the values here in Europe? Huh?
Sounds good. I agree. I also think there's, if you speak, an increasing number of founders, especially the ones that build in AI, talk about not only the talent that exists here, but how this talent behaves. Because if you have an engineer that every 12 months churns, and you've just spent the first 6 months onboarding them, and they're only 6 months effective, and then they go for a salary you can't match. Versus actually in Europe, the churn even at machine learning talent and AI talent is lower, which for highly technical companies where it's not so easy to bring someone in to onboard them is incredibly valuable. So there's like a loyalty element or I guess more stability in the way people think about it in a market that's very hot for talent these days in some pockets.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's a bit journalistic, but I think the commitment, I think that, European companies have, I think, towards employees and vice versa, I think is a little bit more of a missionary commitment than actually a mercenary commitment, which I think actually has a lot of values as well. Huh? So it's a lot of value for value creation because I think it's actually easier in a longer time to build a great company culture if there's as well a certain tenure of like-minded people that actually stay with the company and are very committed to building a company. Yeah.
So speaking of building a company and kind of moving on from Europe to your industry, to e-commerce, there's of course a lot happening in this world of enabling technologies for all the industries. What do you think? Where do you see the opportunities in European e-commerce? What do founders building in this space should look at and take advantage of?
Yeah, I think in e-commerce, there is. I think the biggest topic that I think is on everyone's mind in e-commerce is obviously AI as a new technology because it actually enables different kind of experiences that actually have not been able to create. And I think, and if you think about the world of fashion and lifestyle, I think there is still like a lot of frictions in the process. Yeah. So of how do you actually get like just the sizing question. Yeah? So when you actually get like an item, how can we actually deterministic say that this item will actually fit you? Huh? So the sizing question, which at the end of the day is actually a data question. Huh? Or the discovery. Yeah? So how can we actually predict very deterministically that the item that we can show you actually really is something that you actually like. So there's actually a lot of hard problems in fashion and lifestyle that consumers for sure would not complain if these problems would be solved. Yeah? So which is I think always a good idea a good north star to actually put your innovation towards what consumers won't really disturb themselves if this problem would be solved. So, and I think those kind of problems, I think now with AI now with the advancements in AI, actually have like a higher chance to be solved. And I think that's actually something that we put a lot of effort and innovation towards. How can we actually leverage now AI to create, more content at scale that helps in discoverability? How can we use AI to increase actually the frequency of discoverability of items? So we just recently launched with Zalando a feed in 21 markets. It's actually an AI feed that actually surfaces content formats that might actually help consumers to actually more determine what kind of personalization they actually would like on Zalando. And the size and fit is actually an important step. So now we have about 1 million people that actually took on pictures from myself actually, and where we were able then to discover what exact sizes they have. So it actually helps us to better determine size. So that's a big part of it. So how do we use now AI to increase the experience or improve the experience in a very different way, as we have not been able to do in the last couple of years. And I think the second big topic in AI is the shaping now of agentic commerce. Yeah? How will actually agentic commerce will unfold? Will unfold in the world? Will unfold here in Europe? And what kind of role in this new emerging channel? The different brands like Zalando and OpenAI and Google will actually take, and how are we able actually jointly to create like agentic experiences in commerce in the next couple of years. So I think that those are kind of the two main kind of things that are on people's mind. And there would be a startup. I think rather actually think about what in these big shifts now that are coming in commerce are actually actually good opportunities to actually help the big companies to navigate in. Or if I would be a brand, I would actually ask myself, if I would start a brand today from the AI backwards, how can I actually create a brand in fashion lifestyle that actually is much more based on the data that is actually coming from the consumer and coming from the supply chain in a different way. And I think the brands that we will see in the next 10 years, they will work very, very differently than the brands that are, today in the market.
How do you think this will unfold? For instance, on the brands, like there's a lot of theories around, how this agentic kind of future for commerce look like. What's your view? What's your guess, I guess? Because we can all just guess right now rather than be sure on it.
Yeah, I think if you take fashion brands, I think most fashion brands they work from future predictions of what trends will be, and then actually produce styles and then produce styles for that, produce them in the supply chain at scale, and then actually transport them into Europe in this case, and actually sell them through the season. So it's a very kind of long process, and that's how most of the brands actually work. So and the problem with it is that it actually creates a lot of frictions or a lot of not great investment of capital, because you never really get the demand and supply actually right. And if you think this problem actually now again through from a data perspective, so what kind of data do you actually have today? What kind of data do you have actually from the supply chain, from the factories, and how do you actually enable these things to come together in a much more seamless way? Yeah. I think that's probably how a lot of value can be created in fashion lifestyle through brands by not creating overcapacity, undercapacity, or kind of frictions in the process.
And speaking of kind of the future of new companies being created in this space, but even broader, if you were to think with this build to grow mindset in Europe from day one? I know founders get lessons all the time, but what would be your kind of one lesson learned or advice you have to founders that are building today in navigating what is a pretty uncertain world where nobody really knows what and when, especially when certain things will unfold?
Yeah, I mean, I think the speed aspect is always very important, and I think another important aspect I learned is how important actually this growth mindset actually is, because I think growth as a company is growth in a company is actually is helpful in so many dimensions. I think growth is actually a good excuse sometimes for if things are chaotic. So growth is always a good element of catalyst. And I think when and we had as well as Zalando a couple of years now where the growth actually stopped a bit after the COVID period. And I think actually without growth, I think a lot of things actually get more difficult. And I think this growth mindset is actually very, very important kind of mentality, I think, for founders in general. And it trickles down in the organization, this growth mentality, to not actually think of a problem with incumbent mindset or with a question of what is there to lose, but actually what's there to win. And I think with Zalando now we have over the last 16 years we had actually a couple of bigger technology shifts. So we had technology shifts actually like from web to mobile. Yeah? And now we have the big technology shift on AI. And I think always these technology shifts, they always create opportunities to reinvent and to go back to certain problems and actually think how will this problem actually be solved today, yeah? And how will others solve this problem, and what is actually a unique opportunity that I as a founder or we as a company actually have to do this actually in a different way. And I think this actually creates a lot of momentum and growth, and I think that's the one mentality I would always see. So always approach these problems with an opportunity mindset and with a growth mindset, and then apply speed and quick iteration, and then I think a lot of good things will follow.
Great. I think you mentioned earlier that one of the things that maybe Europe needs to do more is almost craft its own vision as aspiring, as ambitious, as beautiful as possible to kind of have this North Star to work towards. And if I flip it to you and I ask you what is like your vision for what would be your vision for Europe in, let's say, 10 years from now, that we could all look for and wake up in the morning energized to make come true?
So my personal view is, I think very much. I think America was very much built on this idea of the American dream. Yeah? So which is kind of like such a big and powerful brand. Like wherever you are, come to America and we cheer you up. You can build. There's nothing impossible. And I think if I look at the last couple of years, I think this American dream brand actually has kind of suffered. Yeah? So because it moved a little bit from a very inclusive idea now to a little bit more of an exclusive idea. And I think Europe actually has an opportunity to come up with an own version of an American dream, so like an European dream. Yeah? So that actually comes then like yes, we want to win, but we create this ground where it's for founders and for scale-up, it's the best opportunity to build companies. Yeah? And I think from such a vision, I think you can work actually backwards on a lot of great things that we can actually do for European founders. That when they choose actually build a company, they do it here in Europe because it's actually the best place to do it. And I think that's for me like a positive, good idea for Europe that I can certainly motivate myself for, and I think many politicians can as well do. Maybe like in 10 years we can actually say like, yes, the European dream has come true, and we have built like dozens of 100 billion euro companies here from the center of Europe that actually have a worldwide scale and impact the world in a good way. And Europe has really succeeded. So I mean that's my hope, and that's my wish for Europe.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for your insights today. I think we're on time. It's flashing, so
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.